You're so pathetic.
On the season finale of Mashal, Magic and Muscles.
He's controlling my hands.
We don't need you anymore.
I got cream puffs and OJ, so let's party down. Huh?
Who is that? Read the room, you brat.
So, no party?
Mashal, Magic and Muscles. Next Saturday at midnight. Only Toonami on Adult Swim.
Hello everyone, welcome to our podcast Toonami Therapy. Right now it's January 29th of 2025. I got the year right this time. And I'm Michael.
Yeah, hello, I'm Tommy.
And welcome to our podcast, where we're going to talk a bunch about Toonami, a bunch about non-Toonami stuff, and some things that don't even have anything to do with anime.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess we can get right into it because I don't think there's any big news about anything to really discuss. I mean that seriously. I don't actually, I don't know of anything. I'm probably missing something big, but who knows?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any Toonami news or anything.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm sure there's big news, just not of the stuff that we would really be talking about. There's always news about something.
Yeah.
Like for example, I just went to a news site. Historic asteroid sample reveals the building blocks of life are in fact extraterrestrial in origin, scientists say. Now that might be total clickbait for all I know, but that's the kind of discussion and news you will not be hearing here. Okay. Like, I have no idea if that's true or not. But it's probably some sort of like clickbaity thing. I just picked a random one. Or borrow cash from your home without touching your mortgage. No, wait, that's an ad. That's not a headline. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Let's end those sort of jokes for now. All right. So I guess we'll start with the stuff that aired on Toonami. So here we have Mashal episode 9. All right. So in this one, first we have, let's see, one of the guys who fights one of the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that. Then the bigger thing is that we have a bunch of stuff between Mash and this other guy who's what was his name? It was something goofy. All the enemies had kind of goofy names. Like it was, let's see. I see Abyss. Well, wasn't his first name Razor? I think it was Razor Abyss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, it turns out that the guy he's fighting is basically he's saying, yeah, I got this cursed eye, which people don't like because it nullifies magic, but doesn't really matter to Mash because he doesn't really have magic anyway. I mean, that ability seems like it actually would be pretty powerful. I mean, that's basically what Asta has in Black Clover. So, anyway, we get
Yeah, remember that was my problem with it, is that he supposedly doesn't have magic, but he has like anti-magic, which is magic in itself. So he really did have magic. It just was called something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry for cutting you off.
No problem. Cutting me off is fine.
Okay.
Right. Anyway, so then he, Mash, so basically Mash wins, but because the enemy, I guess, is kind of sympathetic. I think Mash offers him cream puffs or something at the end. That sounds like something he would do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
that
the
was
episode.
It. Okay. Go ahead.
No. I was
lose
stopping
your
because I was waiting for you to. You said some.
Oh.
Do we cut off again? Darn.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah. So I thought this episode was okay. It wasn't great, but there weren't. I didn't have any problems with it, and I liked how Mass just kind of nonchalantly carries on these fights and beats everyone, and doesn't really get affected one way or the other whenever these guys come after him. I do feel like this might be going down the one-on-one battles path, which always annoys me that we always have to have these one-on-one battles, but not really much to complain about. Is Maslow considered a shonen series? I don't know what it's considered.
Well, yes, it's shonen. It ran in Weekly Shonen Jump.
Okay, so definitely shonen.
Yeah,
okay.
If we're talking the demographic, if we're talking the genre, which when people say shonen in terms of genre, they usually refer to like the battle genre, then yeah, it would count as that, but obviously with like a strong bent towards comedy in it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep, so I don't have much else to really say about that. So we move on to episode 10 of Blue Exorcist. So right. So basically what's going on is that the cat who was the pet of the priest guy who died, was it like the first or the second episode? The one who was kind of Rin and Yukio's adopted father.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was the first or second. He died early on. So yeah, he had a cat pet, except it's not really a cat. It's really more of like some sort of monster thing that can just turn into a cat. So like kind of like Kilala from Inuyasha, now that I think about it.
Yeah, really.
So so it finds out the guy died, so it basically goes berserk and turns into like the giant monster thing, and they all fight it, but ultimately and there's stuff, we might have to kill it, but then but Reen's able to just make the friendship speech and everything works out okay. And now they got a cute little pet cat that can talk.
Yep. Yeah. For some reason, I remember this episode, but I remember liking this episode, which I didn't really care for this time around. So I don't know what's up with that. Yeah. Just pretty much the power of friendship and all that good stuff. And yeah, I'm very confused where, I've seen this show, but I still can't figure out where it's going. And it's true, isn't it, that it goes down like a different path than the actual manga did?
Yeah, at some point, I can't remember exactly when. We're not at the point yet, but it does go on a different route, and then has its own ending. And then for season 2, they basically just like continued it at the point before the split off. So it basically says, yeah, like the 9 previous episodes or whatever the number was, yeah, they never happened. Just It's like it's like what I mentioned. We were talking about it before. There's that one season of Dallas where afterwards it just was revealed. Yeah, that whole season was just someone's dream. So we're just moving on as if that season didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That reminds me of something I've seen some people. I haven't been keeping up with it, but apparently the guy who draws the One Punch Man manga, not like the one that people think of as the manga. It's kind of weird because there's a One Punch Man comic that this one person writes and draws, and then this other person kind of just draws a sort of adaptation of it that's like the manga version we get and we know. And apparently sometimes he will just like basically after several chapters are released, he'll just say, yeah, none of those chapters happen. We're going to do it differently, and just have completely different chapters and replace them. It's apparently one of the reasons that that chapters come out so infrequently nowadays. It's because he's just redoing so many of the previous chapters.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it was an okay episode. Liked it. I can't remember if the cat is actually an important character or not, but
I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know either. One way to always check is just to search for its name on the episode synopses on like Wikipedia, but it's not mentioned, but at the same time these are also like very brief synopses. And remember, like the last 6 or 9 or whatever episodes are like the split off filler thing or whatever you want to call it. So who knows? Right. I am really wondering whether Toonami will end after this season or whether they'll just continue on to the next season, which again will be a case like, oh yeah, the last several episodes, they never happened, which is actually still less confusing than my understanding of what they did with Tokyo Ghoul. So Tokyo Ghoul, they had like the season 1, and then they had like the season 2 that had the weird name like Tokyo Ghoul Square Root or whatever it was called.
Square root of minus A or
something like that. Anyway, so here's the thing: at that season, just went off coursing the manga. It went in a totally different direction. Like the last episode of the second season is all about the death of a character who didn't die in the manga. Anyway. So Tokyo Ghoul, the manga, it like did its thing, it ran, it ended, and then there was a sequel series that came out. So so as I understand it, I haven't seen it myself, but when they did bring out that sequel series into an anime adaptation, it's called Tokyo Ghoul Re. So and they continued at that point. But the thing is, once again, this was continuing off where the manga left off, and of course the original anime split off from it. But and so but the thing is, which means that not only is it how do I say, it's not a matter of it going back and like saying the last few episodes didn't happen. It's like, okay, the last several episodes didn't happen. Also, a whole bunch of stuff happened that you never saw. As a result of that, it would kind of be like, what's a good connect? Okay, so you watch Full Metal Alchemist, the original series. Then then instead of Brotherhood starting at the beginning and you seeing all that stuff, it just starts midway through. There's a split off point where Brotherhood does something different, and let's say it's like the last half of the series. Maybe not that exact, but let's just say second half of the series is new material. It would be like if you just started like halfway through that new material. So suddenly you have all this stuff going on that you never saw before because it didn't happen in the original series and there's no explanation for it. That is my understanding of how it went. So if you want to go through it, you gotta watch Tokyo Ghoul up until the right point, pull up the manga, read the manga up until the end of that point, then start watching the anime, or don't even bother with Tokyo Ghoul anime at all, because the manga's better. I wasn't huge on the manga, but it was better than the anime. So
well, it would be hard to be worse than the anime. So
I was kind of struck by, I don't know exactly what, even in the parts before the split off, I don't know exactly what it was. Maybe it just worked better in manga form, maybe there were switches, but I found when I just randomly decided to read some of the manga, I found that I enjoyed it more than the anime, even though it seemed like the same basic stuff was happening. So like I said, I don't know, some of the stuff in it just felt like it worked better in manga form. So getting back to Blue Exorcist,
right.
Well, I don't have anything else to say about it. That's why I went off on that big tangent, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I feel kind of the same way as you. I thought it was a okay episode. It wasn't as good as it was the first time I saw it, but it wasn't bad, and I have no complaints about it. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to One Piece, episode 701. This is a big flashback, Law's flashback, and I'll be honest, I cannot even remember most of this episode. Let's see. Law was at a place, he had... So basically, if I remember correctly, there's this illness that's caused by a poisoning, and that a bunch of people in the place where Law lived had it, and he got it also, which limits your lifespan a lot, but people don't, but it kind of makes you a pariah because people think it's contagious even though it's not, it's just poisoning. We get a whole bunch about that, and then Law ends up, I guess, joining up with Doflamingo. I mean, heck, isn't this is like when I stop and think about this is like the prequel to the previous episode, which was already a flashback. Isn't that the timeline?
Yeah, it's like a flashback before the last flashback. So having a flashback, I'm not sure if the flashback is inside the flashback, but it's confusing, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I was so confused watching this, and then all of a sudden it's like to be continued, and I was like, wait a minute, what exactly just happened?
Yeah, that's how it went on. We were in a flashback, and now we're in a flashback within that flashback.
Yeah,
is what it seems to be happening. Beyond,
yeah, it wasn't a very good episode in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't have too much else to say. I kind of forgot most of it, honestly. That's the problem with one. I mean, honestly, because of all the padding, you can basically just say in 2 sentences everything that happened most of the time, and you really get everything. We had a flashback to Law and now the poison stuff, and then he joined Doflamingo's gang, or maybe he hasn't technically joined it. Maybe this is just before he joins it, meaning we're not even at that point technically yet.
And then there will be another flashback of what caused him to do that. So, it makes a little more sense than a dream where someone's writing fan fiction about.
Oh boy, yeah, that was the thing that that arc in Naruto. Wow. Ugh.
And surprisingly, that wasn't even the filler hell everyone complains about.
Yeah, no, that was what did they call it? The infinite filler Yomi, I think, because all the characters were caught in the infinite Tsukiyomi, which makes them all have these dreams and stuff. And that was just an opportunity for filler by showing all these different dreams they were having. But the problem is, since the dreams are supposed to be worlds they like, when they decided, let's use the opportunity to make an arc about, hey, what would have happened if Naruto's father hadn't died? And then, but that wouldn't have made much sense for someone's, world. I mean, I guess maybe Naruto, but he wasn't caught in it, was the point. So they just decided to have an arc of, in Tsunade's perfect world, this one where she's reading this fan fiction Jiraiya wrote about, like all of them giving that alternate story. It's so bizarre. Man. Anyway, that's all we've got for One Piece. Then.
Yeah, I think, in fact, you don't even need 2 sentences to sum up what happened in One Piece each week. All you need are 3 words. Not much happened.
Yeah. Okay. I'm still curious what will happen when that new One Piece anime whenever it comes out. I don't know when it'll be. I just know that someone else is doing the anime from the start, which will mean that eventually in doing so, I guess we'll have an anime that will actually be paced decently. But it wasn't until the
One Piece Kai.
Yeah, that, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens at some point also after One Piece is over. Like, the anime is over. They'll just go back and do a One Piece Kai. On the earlier episodes didn't have as much padding. Dragon Ball Z kind of had the padding right from the get-go, because it originally was Dragon Ball, of course. So by the time we got to Dragon Ball Z, we were already in the mode where we're like, we can't get past where the manga is, so we got to do a bunch of padding and filler. So right from Dragon Ball Z, they were having to do that, which is why they could do it with Kai. With One Piece, it's more like, yeah, you really only need to do the Kai starting in... Actually, I don't know exactly when it starts, but I think it's like around Water 7 people start to really say it starts getting noticeable.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Yeah, I was just going to say is that they'll probably make an anime based off the live action One Piece. So it'll be an anime based off the live action of the anime.
They might do that. Who knows? I feel like there was a manga that was based on an anime that was based on a manga, but I don't know what it was. I can't remember what it was. I just know there was something like that. Well, at least I'm sure there's got to be some comic versions of, like, adaptions of some of, like, the event, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe films, which would make them comics based on a movie based on a comic.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no, wait. No. Perfect example. You've got all of those... So Batman the Animated Series, that was pretty popular, and they had comics that were based on that. So yes, we did have in those cases a comic series that was based on a cartoon that was based on comics. So that's interesting. It is interesting. Okay, I'm sorry. I know there's so many tangents.
It's okay.
Say it quick. I do find it interesting how influential, like, Batman the Animated Series was, just, like, even on the comics. Like, it gave, like, a completely different interpretation of Mr. Freeze from the comics, and then that version of him just started being used in the comics. Originally, he was kind of just a mad scientist. In the cartoon series, he was, like, a more sympathetic figure. I mean, still a bad guy, but at least a bit more of a sympathetic one. And of course, it introduced Harley Quinn, who became crazy popular, and then started being used in the comics and in movies, and then she got her own cartoon series, and
yeah, and she got her own movie.
So we now have, so with her, we've got movies based on comics, based on a cartoon that was based on comics. Okay. All right. So it'll be it for the Toonami series. I guess we can move on to the anime we've been checking out that are not on Toonami. So,
Yep.
we'll have Yu Yu Hakusho episode 39. So the guy on the other team has decided, hey, Kurama's unconscious. I'm just going to beat him up a bunch. And Yusuke gets really upset, but then the guy stops after another teammate says, hey, if you keep doing this, that guy's just going to kill you while you're distracted. So he's like, okay, whatever, just throws Kurama out. He fights Yusuke. Yusuke ends up beating him pretty easily, though. Then he ends up, then Yusuke's up against the next guy, Jin, the Wind Master, who has wind powers and can fly and stuff. So, and then the fight starts, and, well, we don't get too far into the fight, but it starts.
Yeah. I don't really have much to add about this. I don't know what to say. It was okay. But yeah, it felt very similar to the last how many episodes that I can't really distinguish it from the other ones in my mind.
I just thought it was a little the fight between Yusuke. I thought it got more interesting once Jin showed up and started doing things. Before that, I thought it was kind of more boring because first it's just Kurama getting beaten up a bunch, and that's not particularly interesting. I guess it has a point of making you dislike this guy, but it still is kind of goes on for a bit. Then Yusuke fights him, and ultimately it's a pretty easy victory for him. So that wasn't so good. But I liked the stuff with Jin. Jin was kind of fun. So I liked that. But up until, but for the most part, I wouldn't say I was that huge on this episode.
Yeah, I wasn't big on it either. It just felt too much like the last few episodes. So that was my only real problem with it, but it just wasn't great,
All right, so we move on to Shangri-La Frontier episode 33 with a title that I actually need to mention. This is a sort of thing you would see in a Bleach title. The lion catches a rabbit with its full strength. The crab catches a phoenix with a pizza cutter.
Yeah, whenever I saw that title, I was wondering if I was watching the right thing. So that was confusing me. It's like, is this really what I'm supposed to be watching this week?
Yep. So to get through it, Sunraku ends up winning the fight. Then Rust is like, well, okay, let's fight again. He's like, and he accidentally slips that he's basically been playing Shangri-La Frontier, and that there are mech things in there, which makes her really interested because she used to play the game. And they try to and offers, hey, if you can give me information on the mech stuff, I'll give you information about a unique scenario I know. And they kind of do some negotiation stuff with that. I think it ends up with them meeting Shangri-La Frontier to try to go over some of that. And then it just has a thing where like, all right, we'll fight again. And then it, you don't actually see what happens. It just stops right before we see the actual fight. Also, we fight. Remember how last episode I was saying, so when are we gonna see that blue-haired girl with the orange outfit already? And then you see her at the end. She apparently made it to Rabbitusa like Sunraku. So, all right, we didn't really get anything about her, but yeah, she's here now, I guess.
Now, who is the character who Sunraku really wanted Sunraku to stay playing her game?
Oh yeah, that's Rust. That's the name she goes by.
Rust. Okay. Yeah, weren't there two characters with the first letter R? Because I think I was mixing them up. But yeah, that's what I thought it was Rust, but I confuse her with a different character. Yeah, surprisingly, you may not believe this, but I actually really like this episode. I don't know why. But like, yeah, it was funny. It did that thing again at the beginning. It was like Singular Frontier, but not today. and it felt more exciting than just Sunraku fighting a scorpion or something. I liked a lot of the interactions. I just my biggest problem with Singular Frontier is that it set up this whole Sunraku's supposed to have this girlfriend or girl who likes him, but we never really see any of that. So hopefully they get to that at some point, because they set that up a long time ago and nothing's ever come of it. So I'm not sure if that's ever going to be a thing, but hopefully it is.
Yeah, I mean, she's shown up in the show, like, in Shangri-La Frontier, but she hasn't really done too much in it, though, is the thing. So, yeah. That surprised me. I considering that you didn't really like the last episode, I was thinking you were going to say, well, we're finally done with this Nephilim Hollow thing.
No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. So.
Right, yeah. I thought it was decent also, even if I kind of feel we spent a little too much time in Nephilim Hollow. But it ended up going back to the main plot of Shangri-La Frontier. So it wasn't just, Sunraku goes off to play another game for a few episodes and nothing important happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, and then we close off our anime discussion with Blue Lock episode 29. All right, so in this episode, what happens is we learn out who the Blue Lock 11 is, who will be the 11 people in the soccer game against the U20, and that was basically the episode.
Yeah, Rayo didn't make the cut, so I was disappointed about that. And I'm sitting there the whole time. I'm like, okay, we know for sure the main character will be the 11th person chosen. Sure enough, he was. And so they're going to go into the battle, and they all play one position, and now they're supposed to learn other positions, which it just boggles my mind. Fortunately, I'm not the only person who feels this way. In fact, I found out this week that a very large number of fans do not like the way Blue Lock treats the game of soccer, because it's just so unrealistic to have everyone who's one position trying to play 11 spots on the field. At best, you'd have 3 people playing. At most, you'd have 3 people playing the position they're supposed to play. Now, granted, whenever I play my video games, the old FIFA video games are now called FC. I used to do something similar to what they did on Blue Lock. I'd have like 5 or 6 strikers on my team, and my team would be rated pretty low because I didn't have guys in the right positions. But you just can't go into a major game, a major match with someone, with another team that's made up of actual players at actual positions, and try to beat them with 11 strikers. That's just not going to happen. So I wish that if they were going to do this, I wish there had been like a training arc where they were like, okay, you're a striker at heart, but we're going to make you play goalie. So here's some practice time that you have to do to become a better goalie. but they haven't done anything like that. So it really bothers me that they don't get the sport right.
Okay, sorry. I just need 30 seconds. I got to go do something quick, and then I'll come right
Sure.
back and say something.
Sure.
All right. So, to Blue Lock. Yeah, they did mention they were going to be making them go through some training, although over the next several weeks. So we got that explanation.
Yeah, at least we got that. Yeah.
So, so yeah, we're just going to be heading towards that. One thing I found a little weird is because they mentioned, so one of the guys, I can't remember his name, he's the guy with the weirdly colored hair. Well, like even for anime, it wasn't like orange or stripe or something. I can't remember offhand. Yeah. So to have the game happen, Ego mentions he had to like make a concession to them, which was they would pick someone from Blue Lock to be on their team, and they pick him. Which is a little weird because isn't like the one, like Reen's supposed to be like the super crazy skilled player in Blue Lock. It's the one that everyone considers to be the number one, and they just don't get him for some reason. I guess his brother is on the other team and they apparently don't get along, so maybe that's why. I don't know, but seems a little weird. Although actually, in the last episode, wasn't the possibility of getting that one guy from Blue Lock onto the U20 team why Reen's brother came in? I can't remember. Anyway, they got that, which seems like it was for the best because Ego said, yeah, he didn't really get along with anyone anyway, so he would have just been like an extra or whatever. Now, because I'm kind of clueless about soccer games, maybe you can tell me. So how, I know you need 11 players. How does it work in terms of, because obviously you have like extra people and stuff in case like a player gets injured or something during a game, right? How does that work?
Oh, yeah. Well, usually you never have just 11 players. You always have probably about, I don't know, 18, 19, 20 players. The classic thing was that you're allowed 3 substitutions per game. So basically 14 players are going to get into every game. Substitutions in soccer are permanent. So once you take someone out, they can't come back in. So you would realistically need at least 14 players, although there's some leagues that do 5 substitutions, so you could have up to 5 substitutions, but you'd always have at least 1 backup goalie, probably 2 backup goalies, and you'd have close to 8 or so different of other players, the midfielders and the backs and those players, you'd have those. So, going into one of these battles with a game with only 11 people, that's just another reason why this anime does not resemble real soccer.
Well, I was asking because I was just making the assumption that they had like some extras. They were going to like take some of the other people in Blue Lock and have them be I'm sorry, I'm dumb. What was the term for like the spare players again? Substitutions, yeah. So that you would have some substitutions. That would I was thinking Rhea would probably like be one of them if that's the case, because they did kind of give him some focus, and then he's just like, nah, he's not on the team. So so which would seem a little weird if he wasn't going to do anything. So maybe he'll be a substitute and something will happen and then he'll come in and do something. But then again, remember, they did put a whole lot of focus on the personal character arc of that guy who was a traitor, but then just changed his mind and decided to work. And then he got eliminated off screen afterwards.
But wasn't there a plan like some in the first episode? It looked like, okay, this is going to be the best friend to the main character, and then he got eliminated like right off the bat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But that at least was what you just have at the start. It's just so weird to like having like the big redemption arc for a character, and then it's just like, and then he just is off screen and he's gone. isn't even
He's like
mentioned.
he's like the big Starklighter of the Blue Lock show.
Okay, so yeah, that was Blue Lock. It was really, we just get that information, we do a little training, we do one other thing, learn a little more about some of the people on the U20 team, which I guess makes some sense, given that. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna we'll see if I would expect they would probably announce some players as substitutes, which again might be a way to try to integrate some of the other like characters into the match still. So we'll see, I guess. It's
Yeah.
This episode kind of felt a bit like, you have to say not much happened, but stuff did happen that was necessary. It's
Yeah.
like it's kind of a necessary evil of an episode.
Right. Yeah.
All right, and that's all of them. I guess we can give our top pick for the Toonami and the non-Toonami shows.
Yeah, pretty easy picks this week. Toonami, well, of course it's Massel, and non-Toonami is Shangri-La Frontier. And my best girl of the week is Russ from Shangri-La Frontier.
Okay. Yeah, the downside is that now that I'm thinking about looking at our lineup, yeah, there's kind of actually for a number of these years pretty slim pickings for the female characters, because Mashal is pretty male centric. Blue Lock is even more so. There's like, again, basically one female character in the whole series who doesn't really do that much. We got that. Yu Yu Hakusho is also pretty skewed towards the guys. Really like the ones where you might get some female characters doing stuff is Blue Exorcist, One Piece, and Shangri-La Frontier. And where One Piece is right now isn't really giving the girls much to do either. So your choices kind of right now in terms of that seem to just be, well, you got to pick someone from Blue Exorcist or Shangri-La Frontier most of the time.
Yeah, I'm trying to give as many different people their turn, but eventually we're going to have someone get a second week because I've used up Botan, I've used up Pencil Gone, and I don't know if I'm allowed to count the other person in Senraku's party.
Yeah, because he's a guy, but he just has a female avatar. So
yeah, he's a GIRL guy in real life. Yeah. So
okay. So yeah, we've gotten all right, I guess that's all the anime discussion, unless anything related to anime or manga you want to talk about before we move on to Star Trek.
Let's see. I did decide to watch the first episode of Classroom of the Elite, which it was interesting. I don't really know about it. So basically it introduces a female character who literally is exactly the same as Yukino from My Teen Romantic Comedy. I mean, she is exactly the same. She even looks like her. And it's kind of difficult for me with a character who just feels like I know everything about her, even though I've only seen her for one episode, because she acts the exact same way. And I'm like, okay, so does this mean that the show is going to take 50 episodes turning her from what Yukino started out as to what Yukino becomes? Because that's pretty much what My Teen Romantic Comedy did. So the premise is pretty interesting, but it kind of ended on a cliffhanger. So, I'm not willing to give a verdict until I've seen 3 episodes. But
Okay.
that's what my first impressions of the first episode are. Also been watching Bleach. We finally got to the part where they meet the Shinji Ikari Soul Reaper, who's like Shinji, but just a Soul Reaper, and now they're using him as their ticket to try to find Rukia. And Kenpachi Zaraki is desperately chasing after Ichigo and always going down the wrong paths. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and oh yeah, he had the same voice actor as Shinji, didn't he?
Yep.
Okay.
That's why. Yeah, that's why I give the comparison.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't tell. I couldn't remember because I was thinking I wasn't sure if you were saying it was because of that or because he was like Shinji in personality or both. But
Both. Yeah, it was both. Yeah.
yeah, Hanataro. That's another people in the lengthy list of characters in Bleach that looked like they were being setting up for stuff, and then they didn't really end up doing much after their like initial introduction.
Yeah, with him, there was actually a video game on the Wii which I really liked. That was basically like your typical Street Fighter thing, where you do one-on-one battles between two characters. And with Hanataro, he was the only, since he was from Squad 4, all his attacks actually healed the opponent. So you couldn't actually use an attack. You had to do like some other crazy thing with him, like have him trip over something and hit into your character, because you tried an attack that would actually heal. So basically, you would like try to knock off like a tiny bit of energy from, or whatever it is, HP, I don't know what it's called, from your opponent, and then you just run for the next 30 seconds, and you keep running and hope they don't hit you for 30 seconds, because he was the hardest character to play with. For the record, Captain 4 Squad Retsu Unohana was not included in there. I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but if she had been in there, she would have been pretty potent, that's for sure.
Well, a lot of times characters' strength in fighting games is really not scaling with what they were in the original. Like I haven't really played them, but you look at like Dragon Ball Z series, and you're like, okay, there's all these characters that can keep up with all these characters that are way too powerful for them.
Mm-hmm. Like Krillin against Goku or something.
Yeah, stuff like that. Honestly, I'm going to assume that some of them have Yamcha as a playable character, and I assume he's at least okay. Whereas, like in the series, he's basically like what's the joke. You know how like people make jokes about Chad being useless in Bleach? And
yeah,
he's kind of like that, but probably even worse because he just does. His relevance basically to anything ended. Well, it probably ended before, but it officially ended after he got He got killed off by one of those little like green monster things that Vegeta and Nappa made that everyone else was able to beat their copy of.
Wait, was that the part where Chiaotzu blew himself up for nothing?
Well, he blew himself up for nothing later. First, Vegeta. Well, so Vegeta and Nappa decide, well, we're not going to fight yet. We're going to make these little Cybermen guys, these little like kind of small green monster things, which is say they're each as strong as Raditz. So, the guy who Goku and Piccolo only barely beat. So we did that. Anyway, all the other characters win their fights except for Yamcha, who gets killed. And then Nappa decides to fight, and that's when Chaozu blows himself up for nothing.
Now, don't they get brought back at least?
Yeah, they get back. They get brought back
eventually.
Eventually. And then like they make it a big deal out of Chaozu dying because you can only get brought back by the Dragon Balls once, but don't worry, that's just the Earth Dragon Balls. The Namekian Dragon Balls can revive you any number of times. But I think they can only bring back one person per wish, whereas the Earth Dragon Balls can bring up back a bunch. So it's a trade-off.
The Dragon Balls and Dragon Ball Super can bring back entire universes.
Yep. Yeah, the Super Dragon Balls can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was yep. Unfortunately, I don't really have anything to add to any of that. So, I guess we can just move on to our continued voyage through Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1. So if you're just here for the anime, you can click off now.
Yeah, so talk about a voyage. Boy, this episode. Oh my. Well, I'll give the description of the episode first. Basically, the Enterprise runs into this place where they have like 4 survivors from something, and they are going to try to rescue those 4 people. When they go down there, they find out it's this society that's run by women, and women have all the power, and the men are like just there to be, servants or whatever. And so you've got this female-dominated society where the females do everything and the men just kind of just don't do anything except like work as maids or whatever. And Riker goes down there and just decides to fall in love. So Riker is just out of it. And then the other characters go and they find the people who they were trying to save. And they're like, we liked it down here. Why the hell do you want to take us back? And then they find out, oh, well, no, we're just going to kill you. And while this is all going on, COVID-19 breaks out on the Enterprise or something similar to it. I don't know what it was, but this horrible virus comes down and everyone gets sick. And eventually, Presser figures out how to stop the illness just in time. And then the women who were going to kill off those survivors at the last second for no reason at all decide we're going to think about it. And then they decide not to, and then everyone leaves and everyone goes back to normal. And Picard still has a sore throat. And that, my friends, is quite possibly the worst episode in Star Trek history. I think this may be worse than even that other one we had several years ago. So yeah, this one was awful. Code of Honor, yeah, pretty terrible episode.
Oh, wow! I'm surprised to hear that because I didn't think that this episode was bad, but I was expecting something way. I like to put it into perspective. I knew a lot of people rated this as one of the worst episodes. I am looking at IMDb right now to see what the lowest rated episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation are. The worst is Shades of Grey, then Sub Rosa, then Code of Honor, and then this episode. So this is the fourth lowest rated series in episode of the series. So I was thinking, oh man, this is just going to be terrible. And I watched it and said, well, I mostly just thought it was really boring.
Yeah, my opinion was terrible, but yeah,
it wasn't good. I just didn't think. I mean, like, I was thinking, oh, you know, it's a whole, like, oh, women rule the this civilization, a plot that is almost never done well. But
yeah,
here it was like that almost didn't even matter. They like make some references to it, but you could have just swapped this out with anything. Well, like you know, like, oh, it's like the aliens are, it could have just been some different alien race that, like, you know, kind of looked down on the humans or something. Like, just swap that, just do that, and it's exactly the same. For how little, like, you know, it being about like women, men really mattered. But so yeah, there's that. There's just a bunch of dumb stuff in it. Some of them even more minor. It's like, so they get to the planet and they're about to open like hailing frequencies, and Picard now thinks it's a good time to ask Data for what information they have about the planet. And I'm like, okay. There's also one thing I remember someone mentioning. It's like, it's weird because, so on this planet, they have the men wear these weird sort of like chest exposing shirts. And maybe the point is supposed to say, oh man, look at it. It will reverse it. And the men are being humiliated, just like women can be, just like Troy's outfit is in this very episode. So you're like, okay, you can try to do that, but maybe you shouldn't do it when you've got this, her, it seemed, was it just me, or did it seem like her outfit was even more cleavage exposing than usual in this episode?
Yeah, it did feel that way. I was wondering if that was my imagination or not. So, yeah.
So, yeah. And another random thing that I thought was funny was so they decided to, like, you know, open frequencies, but like, okay, it's a women dominated society. Why don't we have like a female character open it? And they picked Troy for some reason. She goes, I am Counselor Deanna Troy of the Enterprise. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, I can't, I'm being contacted, and I'm getting the counselor. They could have, they could have, if they could have at least picked Yar to do it. Like, I am Lieutenant, I can't remember. Is she a lieutenant or a lieutenant commander?
I think just lieutenant.
Yeah. Either way, that sounds a lot more impressive than counselor. So,
like, I'm the foot doctor of the Starship Enterprise, so please accept my greeting. You know.
Yeah. There is this, I guess, is more of a knock on later ones, but it's kind of funny when Riker's saying, all right, we're just going to, even if these guys want to stay, we're going to forcibly beam them off to save their lives. And like, right, they say, well, that would go against several regulations, including the Prime Directive. Riker said, well, I'd rather face a court-martial than let these people die. Next season, there's an entire planet who will basically be destroyed if they don't violate the Prime Directive. And Riker's like, well, you know, maybe there's a cosmic plan that they're supposed to die, and we shouldn't interfere with it. I am not exaggerating. He suggests that. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, so the number one thing I took away from this episode was, I can't believe this show became what it became. Like, it was this bad. I mean, this is terrible. And this is the type of stuff that gets shows canceled. So they are very lucky they had this in the day they did do it, because well, granted, you could say that about a lot of stuff, but still, this is just so bad in quality. Just in quality, it's so bad that I don't know how it became such a great show.
Yeah. So Um, the main answer to that, from my understanding, is that Gene Roddenberry took a less active role, and Michael Piller got involved and kind of took charge of the series.
Mm.
Yeah, it's I kind of feel like it kind of feels like Gene Roddenberry sort of became so he made the original series, and that was a popular series. It was also a pretty good series. I mean, for the most part, its third season was kind of dumb, and there were some bad ones besides that. But he was behind that. And then when it came to the next generation, he had all these weird ideas he insisted on, apparently, like it kind of feels like this is what people say about George Lucas and the Star Wars prequels. He got too much power, and not only just that, but also kind of lost sight of what worked originally. So that's kind of the feeling from what people have said that maybe Gene Roddenberry did with TNG at first. I guess the last comment I wanted to make on this episode is they keep talking about how it's really important to get out of there because the Romulans are causing these problems in the neutral zone, and they got to get over there. And it ends with them heading over there. We do not have any resolution on this plot, and apparently the Romulans must have just decided, whatever, and waltzed off because of the fact that the last episode of the season is when the Romulans are reintroduced, and it's like their first time coming in contact with the Federation for quite a while. So nothing happened apparently with them here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's all of those. I was kind of curious because, like I said, I was looking at IMDb. It's kind of interesting to see what are the highest rated and lowest rated episodes. I still think the worst one so far we've seen was Justice, and that's the 10th lowest. So I'm like, that should be higher or lower, as they might say.
What was that one again?
That was the one where they go to that planet where everything seems all nice and idyllic, but it turns out if you break the law, the only punishment is death, and Wesley accidentally does it. So then there's some conflict about that, and that episode.
Okay, I remember what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was pretty bad too. Mm-hmm.
Out of curiosity, this is kind of unfair to spring it on you, but I'm wondering, what do you think is the highest rated episode of The Next Generation on IMDb? I'll give you a hint. It doesn't involve the Borg, and it doesn't involve Q.
In that case, I just have to guess Chain of Command.
No, Chain of Command. For the record, that the 2-part episodes are listed separately, but Chain of Command Part 2 is number 8.
Okay.
Part 1 is that one's not as high. Where was part 1 is 25, but it's part 2 that's number 8 because that's the one that has all the stuff everyone actually remembers.
Yeah, and no one remembers the first part.
Yeah, it's actually, do you want me to tell you or
yeah, go ahead.
It's the Inner Light. That's the one where Picard, there's that sort of space probe they come in contact with, and it knocks him out, and he basically has that dream where he kind of lives on the alien planet. Have you seen that one? Actually?
I think I have.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen it. Yeah.
Okay. For anyone curious, I mean, I guess you could look it up, but I'll just say it. Number 1 is that. Number 2 is the Best of Both Worlds Part 1. Number 3 is the Best of Both Worlds Part 2. That's the 2-part Borg episode where Picard gets captured. Number 4 is at Yesterday's Enterprise. That's the one where due to time travel shenanigans, they're at war with the Klingons and they have to set things right. And number 5 is All Good Things. That's the last episode.
Last episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the last half of the last episode?
I think All Good Things is I think that's not a 2-parter, technically speaking. Star Trek sometimes does this sort of weird with some of the two-parters are actually two-parters, but some of them are just 2-hour-long episodes that in reruns they just split into two.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, like, for example, Encounter at Farpoint, the first episode, that's not a two-parter. That's just a 2-hour episode. But since obviously when they're airing in reruns, you usually aren't going to be able to have it all there. They just kind of split it in half, and sometimes, cut out some stuff because they need to make room for, repeating the theme song and credits.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. It was kind of a little...
sense.
Yeah, it was kind of a little interesting to look at, like, what are the highest rated and lowest rated of some series. So some of them were, like, kind of obvious. I'm like, okay, what's number one on Deep Space Nine? Oh, it's In the Pale Moonlight. Well, of course it is. Like, what other that? Of course, that's going to be the number one thing for that. Even if you don't like the episode, it's obviously going to be what people pick.
Yeah, I've never seen Deep Space Nine, so I couldn't tell
you.
But,
that's fair. It's just that's like the episode people always like kind of hold up as one of the best. So some of these I was like right, but I guessed on that one on the original series. The top one is The City on the Edge of Forever. Number 2 is Mirror Mirror. That's like the one where everyone's evil in the alternate universe and Spock has a goatee. I was a little surprised to see like when I was looking at Star Trek Enterprise, and I'm like, oh, okay, huh? These aren't the episodes I would think would be the highest. I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, people really have liked season. The highest ones are like is mostly dominated by stuff in season 3, and I was like, I thought season 4 was the better one, but yeah.
What is the last place episode, the final episode
of Enterprise? Yes.
It better be.
These are the Voyages, the lowest rated episode of the series.
So I was going to say, if that wasn't the case, then I don't know if I trust IMDb that much.
Yeah, people really did not like that episode. So, yeah. Anyway, that's just some kind of random information about some of this stuff. In case, by the way, I actually did mention, I might as well mention this because I was curious. I was curious, what is the highest rated episode of season 1 on IMDb? And I figured out it's Conspiracy, which is episode, I think, like 18, 17. We're not going to get there for a bit. That's
only 4 weeks.
Only
4 weeks, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
We're on episode 14, so.
Okay. Oh, that's fast. I thought it was later in the season. Let me yeah, okay. That surprises me a bit. Wait, Conspiracy? No, we're like 11 episodes away from that.
What number is it?
Conspiracy is 25. It's the second to last episode of the season.
Okay, you said 8. You said 18. So.
I was saying I was just guessing it was something around that because I couldn't remember offhand.
Okay. Yeah.
So that'll be something to see when we get there. Anyway, so yeah, definitely I did not dislike it as much as you did, but it definitely was not a good episode, and I think this is the last of the episodes that's kind of the first season that's like considered like the really bad ones outside of, I know some people really hate Skin of Evil, but that's also one that everyone says, oh yeah, you got to see it because it's actually important to the plot. So we'll get there. We'll get there so at least it seems like we're past the episodes that are considered the worst of season 1.
So what are you giving it on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think I'll give it a 4. Like I said, I didn't really get like angry or anything about like some people did. I just thought it was like just dumb and pretty boring.
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give it a 0.
Really?
So,
Okay.
yeah, it gets a 0. I don't have anything good to say about it. Like the way it makes women out to be like, power hungry and all this stuff, like it's ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I read what they were going for. They were like trying to make a statement on like South Africa, which was, really bad at the time, but they didn't do a good job at that. So yeah, this episode was just terrible. So the faster we can get Gene out of here, the better.
I need to did you, when you saw that, did you like look at like the production information on like the Star Trek wiki Memory Alpha?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's this one story, what someone was talking about in regards to Gene Roddenberry with it. I assume you saw it, but I just want to read it because I found it now I want to make it clear, just for the record, this is secondhand information. This is what someone else is saying about Gene Roddenberry isn't around to like, say, no, that's wrong or whatever. But so take it with a grain of salt. But if this is true, whether it's true or false, it is just kind of funny to read. So he was saying, basically saying, so this was Herbert Wright, and he said, so one of the major issues that we didn't want to do is an Amazon women kind of thing where the women are 6 feet tall with steel D cups. I said the hit I want to make to take on this is apartheid so that the men are treated as though they are the blacks of South Africa. Make it political. Sexual overtones, yes, but political. Well, that didn't last very long. Everything that Gene got involved with had to have sex in it. It's so perverse that it's hard to believe. The places it was dragged into is absurd. Talking about how women would react, and Gene was voicing all the right words again, saying, oh yes, we've got to make sure that women are represented fairly, because after all, women are probably the superior sex anyway, and it's real important that we don't get letters from feminists, because we want to be fair, and we don't want to infer that women have to rule by force if they do rule, because men don't have to rule by force. Very sensible stuff. All of a sudden, something kicks in and he changes. However, we also don't want to infer that it would be a better society if women ruled. His voice becoming increasingly louder. Roddenberry continued that this was because women were untrustworthy, vicious creatures, which he angrily bursted out in a torrent of hateful verbiage. Then he looks out the window, looks at the outline, and says, okay, on page 8, and continues like that didn't even happen. So, like I said, no idea if this story is true or not, but just the way that was told was kind of funny.
Yeah. I don't know what to think about that.
Yeah. So yeah. So not a good episode. I'm wondering if you thought this was worse than Code of Honor, do you want to retroactively give it a 1 instead of a 0 out of 10?
No, they can be tied with 0, Okay. I mean, there's going to be things tied. So there's going to be ties. So
all right.
I don't have 100 numbers between 1 and 10 to give out. So
it's not that hard. Just go 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. There, you get 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
well,
right.
actually, if we're if we're starting at 1 and we're going to 100 in that way, I think that actually gives us like 90 or something. So you'd have to start with 0, 0.1, 0.2. Do you think these at least deserve a 0.5? You don't have to answer that, but okay. Yeah, I think that's everything to say about it. So, although one random thing I wanted to mention, it was that quote I mentioned. It mentioned like Amazon. women. Well, here's something, a random fun fact. The person who played Beata, the elected one, she, before, like, I think a year before this episode, was in a movie called Amazon Women on the Moon. I haven't seen it. Apparently, it's kind of like more of a comedy thing in that the premise is that someone is watching some movie called Amazon Women on the Moon, but then they don't, but then like something goes wrong with the broadcast, so they just change channels to look at a bunch of different stuff, and each of those things is like some random, like, you know, like a parody of a TV show that's kind of its own self-contained skit. Don't know if it's good or not, but still, it's just funny that that she was in a movie called Amazon Women on the Moon, and then this episode.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
All right. And that, I think, is it. Next time we'll watch 1100101. And we'll see if we can even remember that's the episode title.
Yeah.
All right. Any last things to say before we sign off?
Nope, not really.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Well, it's that time of year again. Happy Valentine's Day from Toonami.
Remember to thank that very special someone.
Who's got your back when the chips are down.
Because love is a many splintered thing.
Yeah, did you say splintered?
Yeah, Tom, what did you think we were talking about? Cue the beatings.
So you finally showed your true colors.
Now it's gotten interesting.
Stop your whining!
Just get out of the way!
You're so dead! When I'm done with you, boy, you're gonna have nightmares for a month! Give it your best shot.
Love is in the air, and pain is on the menu. Make a move. When you're ready to die.
Right uppercut to finish you off!
Hello, listeners. Welcome to our podcast, Toonami Therapy. We're recording on February 5th of 2024. My name is Michael.
Oh, yeah, hello, I'm Tommy.
And we're here to discuss some of the anime we've been watching, some of which is on Toonami, and other things. But, yeah, we can't stray too far away from the title, so we feel obligated to be sure to continuing to discuss Toonamis. So yeah, I don't even know what we change it to if we didn't. Toonami, you should stay around, because otherwise we'll just have this name in this podcast, and I guess we could always rename it, but then it would, but you know, it's on the specific toonamitherapy.podbean.com URL. Do I want to change a different one? I mean, I guess you can, but then you lose the other stuff, and it's all very complicated. And yeah, so actually, one podcast I know I listened to did undergo a rebrand. It's just got a different name, but it's still got the same URL that it used to. Okay, well, I guess we can just stop with the opening stuff, because I don't think there's really any new opening, anything else to talk about to start. We don't have any new news, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay, so we then move on to Mashal episode 10. Okay, so basically they end up they go up against, what was her name? I remember her first name was Love. What was her last name? It was something else that was weird.
Cute.
Love Cute. Okay. So they go up against her, but then they manage to win, and then then if I remember correctly, she's like just, yeah, I'm just gonna switch sides, but then runs off anyway. So there's some, and then it doesn't. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, then they end up fighting another guy, and then we have some stuff with MASH also. I'm sorry, this episode is kind of a blur for me after the love fight, unfortunately. But I know they go up against another guy.
Yeah, and MASH kind of takes him on, and yeah, there wasn't much to say about the other one, but basically, yeah, it's kind of a blur to me too. I don't know why I can't remember it well. I do remember immediately after the episode ended, Adult Swim aired a preview for the episode we just watched.
Yeah.
And I was so confused.
Yeah.
So.
I initially, because it was having them fight against Love, and I was thinking, oh, okay, because I could be wrong, but I feel like a joke of hers in the series was that she kept just switching sides on a whim, and I would think, oh, so maybe they just fight her again. But then I thought about it, like, no, that scene was where they were fighting her before, so that can't be it. So then I checked online, and everyone else is saying, yep, they just did time travel, apparently.
So, yeah, not much really to say about it. It was an okay episode.
Okay, so then we got Blue Exorcist episode 11. Okay, so basically they go, well, we start out with a beach episode, but then that's just kind of thrown aside pretty quickly in order because they have to fight a giant squid. Basically, the giant enemy squid, basically. Yeah, the little cat pet that they got in the previous episode actually is still around in this episode and tries to fight it, but doesn't manage to beat it. Anyway, there's a bunch of fighting, but then it turns out, no, the squid wasn't evil. It was actually good. So then they're all like, well, I guess that settles that. And yeah, that was basically the episode.
Yeah, we start out with the swimsuit episode thing, and there wasn't as much fan service as usual. Then we got that whole thing, and yeah, I feel kind of like this show doesn't really have like a main goal to it, and I mean, I guess you don't have to have like a main goal to your show, but it just feels like it's just kind of meandering out there, and it's like, when are we going to get some purpose here? So I guess maybe the whole thing is that Rin is going to defeat Satan, but there's really no progress being made toward that goal. So yeah, I thought it was okay episode. I didn't think it was great, but it was okay.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't have too much else to say about it that we didn't already say. So I guess we'll just get to One Piece episode 702. So if I'm following this plot sequence correctly, so 2 episodes ago we started Flashback. Then the episode after that we had a flashback within that flashback. Now that flashback, the one within the flashback, is over, but we're still in the original flashback, and now within that flashback we have a new flashback within that flashback, which is about Doflamingo's backstory, where basically his family were world nobles, but his father was said, well, why regular humans seem perfectly fine, and we should like live with them and be that, and quits being a world noble. The problem is that since the world nobles are such jerks, all the regular people basically try to go after them and attack them, so that doesn't work out so well, and that just basically leaves a whole bunch of resentment by Doflamingo about everything. And then after all of that, we finished with that stuff, and actually it's then basically we get some more stuff in the original flashback about Law, and we do find out that Corazon guy, he can talk apparently, and he just tells him, hey, you shouldn't stick around Doflamingo. Also, they make a big deal about the fact that his middle name is D, which the series is always talking about, like Monkey D. Luffy, Trafalgar D. Law, and apparently that's considered a really big deal. I'm not sure exactly why, but I mean, anyone can just put a D in your middle name, can't they?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's apparently considered a big deal and is trying to be kept quiet. But yeah, other than that, we basically just go through that stuff. We have some more stuff with Law, and then we find out Corazon is telling him stuff. So, yep, that's it. I think we're done with the flashbacks within flashbacks, but we're still in the regular flashback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was a little confused here because it felt like they were trying to soften Doflamingo and make him look like a sympathetic character. And I'm just wondering, we haven't even defeated him yet. So why would we want to try to make him sympathetic if he's still evil and still trying to destroy all the Straw Hats and rule over all those people and keep them caged up and everything? We have all that, but we're already trying to sympathize with him and make him look like he isn't really that bad. Well, it's like, well, you could do that whenever he's on the precipice of defeat, but he's still being an evil dictator, it's not the best time to start doing these flashbacks where we make him look good. So, I was really questioning what they were doing with this whole thing here. It doesn't make much sense to me, but One Piece usually doesn't make much sense, period. So, to me, that is. So, that was really weird. That's all I have to say about that.
I don't mind them doing it before his defeat because I've complained so much about the whole, hey, look, this guy is about to die. Let's give a bunch of flashbacks about how they actually had a really complicated backstory and had some sympathetic parts to it. But now they're dead, so none of that matters. And anyway, now see ya. I'd much rather we get that before the absolute last second of their life, which is what like Bleach was especially guilty of doing. And Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer does that a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't have too much else to say about that. I don't think it necessarily makes Doflamingo sympathetic. Just I guess it explains more where some of his motivations come from and such. All right. So yeah, okay. That's it for Toonami because we're still just having reruns of Invincible Fight Girl, and so only 3 shows.
Yep.
All right. So after that, we move on to Yu Yu Hakusho, episode 40. So Jin and Yusuke fight a whole bunch. There's there's stuff with well, I won't go through a whole play-by-play, but I will say it was I did like to think the funny part where Yusuke basically decides to make this gamble of firing this thing at Jin at point blank range, which would cause this massive explosion and probably kill at least one of them, but Jin is able to like deflect it, so it just blows both of them clear. And there is a funny part where Yusuke says something like, "Oh man, I was sure that would kill at least one of us." Anyway, after basically we go through that, and the episode ends where both of them are deciding, well, I guess we'll just use our ultimate attacks now, which we didn't do before. Well, for Yusuke, I guess it was because you just thought this was like this one he's trying to do, the spirit wave or whatever, he hadn't been able to do correctly before, and Jin didn't because actually I don't know why he didn't. Maybe there's some hidden weakness to it that we don't know. But yeah, that's basically it. They're going to be going up against each other with their stuff, and we'll see if Yusuke manages to pull off this spirit wave technique or not.
Yeah. Yeah, just 1-on-1 battles. That's all we got here. So, yeah, I don't really have much to say about it because to me it feels like Dragon Ball Z and pretty much every episode of Dragon Ball Z. So, especially whenever they're doing those rapid fire punches to each other, which never do any damage to anyone ever. Like I never understood why they do those rapid fire punches.
It worked.
Yeah.
It worked for Star Platinum.
Yeah, it worked for JoJo, that's for sure. Does not work in the older stuff. Well, I guess JoJo is older. What am I talking about?
Let me look that up. Star Platinum was Stardust Crusaders. That was 1989 to 1992. Now, when was Yu Yu Hakusho? I know it was around that time period, but I can't remember exactly when it was. Yu Yu Hakusho was 1990 to 1994. By this point, I would assume we would have gotten stuff with Star Platinum. So that would have, I think, come before, but this was running concurrently with that.
Yeah.
So about the same time.
About the same time, yeah. So I'm not sure why that matters, but we provide everything here.
Yeah, well, the manga at least. I'm not sure about the JoJo anime. Well, it depends because they had an OVA that was kind of an adaptation of Stardust Crusaders. That was from quite a while ago. That was from 1993, but that was actually the JoJo, the OVA thing they had of Stardust Crusaders came out at around the same time as the Yu Yu Hakusho anime, but we didn't get like the sort of modern JoJo anime, what everyone thinks of as a JoJo anime until like 20 years after the Yu Yu Hakusho anime. They were pretty slow getting to the party with like a proper JoJo anime.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. All right. Okay. So that's Yu Yu Hakusho. I have anything else to say? Nope. So we'll move on. We got Shangri-La Frontier, episode 34. So in this episode, Sunraku does find out about that other person who managed to make it to Rabbituza, but doesn't actually meet her because she's not logged in at the time. And so yeah, there's some stuff with that, a bunch of goofy stuff with him and Emil. Ultimately, Sunraku wants to go over to trying to remember exactly what was he was doing. Right. He wanted to. He needed to go to, what was it? The was it town 50 or town 15? It was like Ficticia, but I don't know. And they're all named after like the numbers, but I don't know if that's supposed to mean 50 or 15. All right. Well, basically, so he's going to go over there because he had to make the meeting with Rust about it, and he also needs to. Okay, So here's the thing I'm forgetting about. I know he ends up calling Siger Zero Ray because that's like the one person he thinks won't try to interrogate him about things, and then she does, and then she's like, okay, meet me in this place but I can't remember what he was actually planning to do with what he needed her for. That's what I'm a little confused about. But they were going to like 11 Tur, so I remember that at least. Anyway, then a bunch of the episode is just Sunraku fighting this boss that he wants to get a record on. I kind of hope he doesn't, because it'll feel really stupid if he manages to first try beat everyone else's record on this.
Yeah.
But he probably will.
Yeah, probably.
Yep. And yeah, so dang, I can't. The thing is, I remember the stuff. I just don't remember how it all gets together. Sunraku's trying to get to Siger Zero because she was going to meet with him, but I can't remember exactly what he needed her for, other than that he was going to have to also get to the other place to meet with Rust. So yeah, unfortunately that part slipped my mind, which is annoying because it's actually an important thing. I think maybe he just needed someone's help to get to the Ficticia, and that's how it all worked out. Maybe that was it.
Yeah, maybe. What are we ever going to see Pencilgon and that other character again? Because like we saw them kind of in this episode, but I mean not in person. We saw them in like a thought bubble of Sunraku, but it like I thought the show worked a lot better whenever they were around. Like whenever he does these boss fights, I kind of get bored. So hopefully we get some more with those characters. I don't know. Why didn't he want them to find out about it though? Like he had that thought about them, and he was like, should I tell them? And he was like, oh, definitely not, you know?
If I remember correctly, it was because he didn't want them to necessarily know that he had this information, at least until he had it. He just didn't want that. I think was basically
okay.
He didn't want to be giving them free information about this sort of thing. So he just grabs Ray, who, well, he doesn't know it's Ray. He just knows it's this Siger Zero person, and just on the grounds that he doesn't think that she would be like, interfering with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I did like the part where he sends the thing to her asking, and then she gets so excited and nervous she has to temporarily log out. So that was kind of funny. Yep, that's it. So yeah, I guess we'll move on to Blue Lock episode 30. Okay, yep. So in this episode, well, basically the whole thing is just setting up. Well, okay, we saw a bit of the match, but we do set up, we do find out that, yes, the Blue Lock team is going to have, people like in reserves on the bench, I think is what they call it. So we get confirmation of that. I'm going to guess that because it does mention, and as you told me last week, you can substitute in 3 people. So I'm going to guess those 3 will be Rayo, Bato, and I can't remember his name, but the kid with the really short hair.
Yeah, it has to be characters we know.
I mean, those are the three that we actually put some special focus on. So I'm going to guess that it's that those are the three we're going to see. All right. So anyway, basically we're setting up for the game, and then the game starts, and this game is inordinately popular apparently for some reason. I was like that's a very, very crowded stadium.
Yeah.
And it just says, I guess everyone's excited to see Saitoshi play.
Yeah.
That's the explanation we get. Anyway, so yeah, we start up with the game, and then they play a bit, and well, we don't really get too far into the game, so we can't really say too much about that. Basically, the Blue Lock guys try to pull off a play, but it gets thwarted, and that's basically where it is at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed the whole soccer stadium atmosphere thing. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. It brought back memories of me going to sporting events like that. That was pretty cool the way they did that, and how they set it up. And you had like opposing teams, fans, and stuff. Because I assume those were the main characters' parents, right?
Like the man and the woman there. I was trying to think, was that like Isagi's parents or something? That's what I guessed, but I wasn't sure. It had been so long since we saw them. If we even saw them, I can't remember that. If we did, it would have been very early. I forgot to go and double check who they were, unfortunately. If I can, well, maybe I can. Let me. I'll just take a quick look to try to see.
For you. I'll solve for you.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this episode a lot. Actually, I thought this was one of the better episodes of this season so far, and I like the gameplay of it too, and I didn't notice. There's been some complaints about the animation, but I didn't notice any in this episode. So, yeah. So I thought it was a pretty good episode.
Yeah, I didn't see too much. It might have like what people are complaining about. On the other hand, it's also possible that I've just become desensitized to it by this point. So it at least did not seem as bad as some of the stuff that we saw earlier this season. And yes, I have checked like the two people I got special focus. I'm comparing them to, like, I'm looking at the first episode. Yes, those are 100% the main character's parents.
Okay.
It had been so long since we saw them that I was like, I just guessed. I'm gonna make in the original manga. I'm gonna make a guess that probably during that scene there, because in manga a bunch of times, like when a character shows up, like there'll be a little text box, like saying who they are, but you don't. But a bunch of times anime will sort of skip over that, so that might have been there, and then it just was left out of the anime. I don't have the manga on hand to compare. So yeah, I thought this was a decent episode. A bunch of it was set up. I did notice the fact they mentioned that I don't know, like the guy with the hair, with the blonde, who got hair, who didn't get along with people. They mentioned, he's not on the other team. So it seemed a little weird to be setting that up and not doing that. So I'm going to assume he probably just comes in as a substitute at some point. But once again, there's always, I can never be absolutely sure that Blue Lock won't set something up and then not pay it off, because once again, we got that whole big focus on that one character and the redemption arc, and then he was eliminated off screen and never mentioned again. Okay. yeah. Let's see. Was there anything else I wanted to say? Actually, I have a question. I was wondering. Obviously, you know who the opposing the identity of the people on the opposing team. Do you know going into the game, or like know before it, who's on their bench? Because I remember in this one, Ego mentions that he like only finished it like kind of like at the last minute. So I don't know if that's something that like the other team only finds out right before the game, or if they don't even know during the game. How does that work?
Well, they know everyone who's on the bench. They don't know who's going to be brought in,
Okay.
but they know the entire roster, every possibility, but they do not know, you could just pick someone on a whim, so
Okay.
pick 3 people out there, anyone you want, but they do know everyone who is on your bench. So, and they know everyone who's obviously on the field, and they know who's starting and who's on the bench. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. The other thing I was wondering about because again, and I'm showing my cluelessness about all of this sort of thing. So I know obviously there's obviously different positions and stuff. They talk about like midfielders, strikers, that sort of stuff. They mostly kind of blur together to me, I'll be honest. But my question was, in soccer, is this obvious? Are any of these sort of like more strict positions that you like have to have people in, or is it just kind of more of a general like way to describe people? Like what I mean is, like, if you say, okay, someone's a midfielder, do they technically have can they play theoretically exactly the same as a striker or whatever, or is it like a goalie where, you're the goalie, you're limited to that specific thing, you got special rules for you, things you can and can't do that on like the other players? Does that question make any sense at all?
Yeah, that question makes sense. Basically, you can do whatever you want. If like a midfielder could play defense, he could play offense, he could play whatever he wants, but generally speaking, he stays in a certain area and spends most of his time in that area. Now, whenever there's something like a corner kick or something, the midfielder may be down playing defense, or maybe if there's a strong attack, maybe he'll be up playing offense. But generally speaking, you're going to have your strikers up front playing offense, your midfielders, in between, all the backs playing back on defense. And so there's no real rule that you have to be in a certain spot, but generally speaking, you are in those spots, because if you aren't, then it creates a hole in your lineup, and then the other team can take advantage of it.
Okay. All right. That's kind of what I thought was the case,
Yeah.
but I was wondering, because in some sports there's like positions that are like kind of more informal, and then there's ones that are formal, like like the goalie. They can do things the other players can't, and there's stuff the other players can do that they can't. Like a goalie, at least as far as I know, they can't like just take the ball and bring it all the way to the other end of the field.
Right.
I guess you can kick it and try to make it. There have been some goalies that just straight up kicked a ball and got a goal out of it from the other side of the field.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible.
Okay. All right. I guess that finishes us up with Blue Lock then. And with that's the anime we watched, at least the ones we watched specifically for the podcast. Yeah. So I guess we can give our picks for it then.
Yeah, my pick for Toonami, surprisingly, is Mastle yet again. I don't know if we're gonna ever get a competition for this. How long, by the way, how long is Massel? Is it coming up toward the end soon?
I think we're on episode 10, and I think there's around 24 episodes, so we're a little less than halfway through it.
Okay, so Massel's probably got about 14 more, 14 more victories in this column. Non-Toonami, I'm going with Blue Lock. And my best girl of the week is Love Q.
All right. Well, yep, I will also pick Mashal and Blue Lock. Shangri-La Frontier had some stuff I really liked, but then it just focused too much on the boss fight. It means, I'll be fair, it wasn't as bad as some of the times they just decided to have Sunraku solo a boss, which is the sort of thing that might be interesting to watch like in a YouTube video, but as a show, not so much. It's like, I'm interested in watching someone try to see if they can beat like, Pokemon Blue with just a Magikarp, but but I don't want to watch it in an actual anime series I'm watching. That is a video. That's what I stumbled across this person who most of their videos are all like these like Pokemon challenges, like, hey, can you beat the game with just a Caterpie? How about just a Ditto? What about a Magikarp? In case you're wondering, the answer for the red and blue Magikarp is that you can't, because you aren't able to damage the ghost Pokemon. You can't tackle as normal, so it won't hit them. And struggle, which if you actually don't know what that is, and there's a good chance you didn't, if you've used up all of your moves, you can't use them anymore. You default to this move called Struggle that hits for some damage but has recoil. But in Generation 1, you can't use Struggle against them either because it's a normal type. So you can't do it with Magikarp. He did, however, find out that you can win with just a Magikarp in Fire Red and Leaf Green, because their Struggle is... Well, first Magikarp gets Flail also, but Struggle doesn't count as a normal type. So that was all kind of interesting. Although it is possible to win with the Magikarp if you get one of these special ones you could get from some events that no bubble, and then you could use them. So some of that stuff was actually kind of interesting to watch. But that I would not be interested in watching the episode Shangri-La Frontier where Sunraku decides to see if he can beat the Elite Four with a Magikarp. It's so yeah, that's all I've got to say with that. All right. Before we move on to any Star Trek discussion, anything else to mention about anime?
Yeah, I watched a couple of shows this week, and I also wanted to watch a couple of other shows, wasn't able to. So basically at the con this weekend I was at, they were showing this show called Ranking of Kings, and basically it's about this prince who was like deaf and mute, and all he can do is really make noises, and he comes up to this black hole, and the black hole tells him to give him his clothes, so he just throws his clothes into the black hole, and that goes on for about an episode, and then the next episode they try to make him sword fight, and he can't really do that. But the black hole thing is like, I'm going to step up for you. I'm going to help you out. And it sounds weird, but to be honest, it's a lot weirder than the way I said it. So, that I am very tempted to give it a third episode. I saw 2 episodes. I want to be fair and do the 3-episode rule, but I don't know if I can make it. It's just really weird. It is. I guess that might be what makes it popular, is that it's so different from everything else. It's not an isekai, it's not a shonen. It's about a weak, powerless character. So, yeah, don't know what to do with that. Then there was I watched the second episode of Classroom of the Elite, where the Yukino character, as I call her, I'm not. Her name is like Suzune, but she uh, she continues to act the way she's been, but we find out that it's because her brother has put so much pressure on her. So there's actually a reason why she acts so mean towards everyone. And so she kind of gets a little bit of a redemption with that. But it's only 2 episodes, so it's way too early to tell on this. So I'm going to stick around with this one for a while. Finally, I wanted to watch 2 shows, and only to find out at the last second that they are sub only. So we will have to wait on Welcome to Japan, Miss Elf. And what was the other one called? There was another one I went. It had a dub, but it was like a Portuguese dub. So I'm like, yeah, I that's not going to work for me. Let me see what it's called. It's called Unnamed Memory. I thought that would be an interesting, or not. Yeah, Unnamed Memory. What? I'm trying to see what. No, it's not. It's not. It's German. That's the dub. It's in German, not Portuguese. So German doesn't really work all that well for me. So yeah. I could watch these shows sub, and I might, but I figured I'd stick with my dub shows. I want to go back to watching Shy again. So but yeah, that's my anime report of the week.
Okay. Yeah. It is always interesting in some cases where they've got dubs, but they're not English. I remember some series like they have like a Thai or a Hindi dub, but nothing in English. I haven't heard of one that's it's got a German dub, but not English though. That's a little surprising to me. Just Japanese and German, nothing else, or Deutsch as it's written, because that's how you say German in German.
yeah.
German is weird because it does not, in the actual language, it does not sound like it does in English. Like in English you say German and Germany, but in the actual language it's Deutsch and Deutschland. So that's just kind of so that's kind of weird there. So I don't know how that ended up working. I mean, when they say English, it sounds like English. Like at least like Spanish, it does. In Spanish is Español, but you can kind of hear how they sound sort of similar. Spanish, Español, whereas German and Deutsch, it's just like what? It's the same thing with Japanese, where we say Japanese, but it's Nihongo in the actual language, which sounds nothing like Japanese. Okay. Although to be fair, English doesn't. When they say English, it's "ego," so that doesn't sound that much like it. At least it's still more like it does in Nihongo does in English. So yeah. Okay, so on my end, I did go forward, and I did finish, because I had watched some of it before, but then I kind of fell off, and I decided to go back and finish it. I finished the first season of Solo Leveling, which is a series which I was actually surprised upon looking at it. I didn't realize how popular this series was. You can usually tell kind of popularity to a certain extent if you look, for at least comparing Crunchyroll series to each other, if you see how many ratings it's got. Now that does, so because obviously a more popular one is going to have a lot more ratings, unless it's they're all like low ratings, but it's still a way to gauge it. It's not perfect, especially for older series, because obviously fewer people will be rating them. There's also, if something was on Funimation and got brought to Crunchyroll later, it won't help. But regardless, Solo Leveling has a whopping 475,000 ratings on the website, which is a lot. For comparison, remember that's 475,000. Spy Family has 327,000.
Wow.
It's not as high as Demon Slayer, which is 573,000, but still, when you look at stuff like that, or I don't know what's another super popular series.
Attack on Titan.
Oh, perfect. Attack on Titan. That one's got 337,000. Although once again, that one's at a bit of a disadvantage because of the fact that it I think it only got brought over to Crunchyroll after like the main series had been completed. I think at that point there was just the like the specials that concluded the series left, or it was at least later on, but still. So yeah, Solo Leveling, really popular. Anyway, so the basic premise of the series is it takes place in a sort of alternate world or Earth where, or maybe it's not even alternate. Maybe it's like supposed to be some like, slightly in the future Earth. But basically, people can like enter these portals to go into dungeons, and they can go in there and fight monsters and get stuff, and they can bring it back to, like sell. The people who do these are called hunters. And the downside for a bunch of them is that basically your level of ability as a hunter is essentially, once they call like awakened, that's just your skill and that's it. If you're like, there's like rank S, A, B, C, D, E, and what your rank is, that's basically what you're stuck with permanently, outside of a few really rare cases where you get a second awakening. So our main character naturally is someone who's at the lowest rank, but basically to go through a bunch of stuff, he manages to gain the ability of literally leveling up. That's the show's name, Solo Leveling, because only he is able to level up and get stronger when he kills things. And basically his life kind of gains the powers of an RPG. He can level up, he can like just buy stuff to heal himself, see his HP, all that kind of stuff. And therefore allows him to grow a lot stronger, and it's about that sort of thing. And it's honestly, in a lot of ways, it really is just a whole, hey, I'm the weakest guy, but great, I got this super amazing power, and now I can be the strongest guy, that you see all the time. But it manages to kind of work because, well, like the animation is really good. It looks good. He does actually have to struggle in some cases. Now, I've only gone through the first season. The second is airing. I think I'll wait until that's over because this is a series I think that works better binging. It's not really, when you get down to it, you can't really say the writing's all that great, but the spectacle is good, and it's decent enough that I managed to enjoy myself. Although the main character, in addition to his level up abilities, apparently got a whole lot of plot armor. There's this part where I can't call it a Deus Ex Machina because the mechanism for which it happens was previously established, and it kind of made sense. But when it happens is ultra convenient. Basically, he ends up basically being about to die. We're literally talking seconds away from death. And then this thing happens that basically takes him away from the whole situation and lets him heal up and go back and win. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this was set up, but man, that was crazy convenient timing.
So it's kind of like whenever you're doing your Pokemon thing and you're doing all these battles, and then suddenly you talk to someone, they're like, here, let me heal your Pokemon for you. and boom.
Yeah, just a matter of convenience. I have so that's my kind of review of it. I thought it was decent. It wasn't great, but it was a kind of fun watch. I just wish that that the writing was a bit stronger. Although I did see some people saying, well, the whole reason the original comic was popular was because the drawing was really good, but the plot was kind of stupid. So maybe the animes in that way are really good adaptation. So yeah, that's I guess all I have to say about that. I'll probably check out the second season later and see how it goes. But yeah, despite its deficiencies, I had fun with it, and it seems a whole lot of people like it. What's the right to say it? In some ways, it's kind of like if someone, like I said, it's kind of like what you sometimes see with like the complaints about all the overpowered isekai stuff. It's kind of like that, except if the people who were making it were actually trying to put out something decent, even within those limitations. It does help that he actually does have to work for some of his victories and such, even if it does look like it might be like, well, he's about to become basically immortal, apparently, with some of the power-ups he just got at the end of the season. One final thing I wanted to mention. The series does this weird thing. So it's mostly focusing on the main character, which makes sense. But it constantly will just be for brief bits, cutting over to these other characters who have never met the main character and have no relation to him yet and what they're doing. And it's weird because it has nothing to do with him. Now, I'm going to guess that they eventually intersect, but it is weird to have all this stuff with these characters, and I'm just like, who are these? I barely know anything about them, but they're just doing all this other stuff. All right, so that's my thoughts on that, I guess. I could maybe throw out a few more things, but people are probably tired of me talking about it already.
Oh yeah, I also watched more Bleach. I'm up to episode 36, I think, and we're just about to have the Kenpachi Ichigo battle, so that's pretty exciting. But yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah. So, out of curiosity, so far, does the Soul Society arc still hold up on a rewatch?
Yeah, it does. It's still pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it's kind of a blur, but for some reason I remember the part where Kenpachi is just listening to Yoruichi's directions, which of course are terrible. I like the part where I do remember the part where she says, turn right, and he goes in there and there's an immediate dead end.
Yachiru, not Yoruichi.
Oh yeah, Yachiru, sorry. I got the names mixed up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and that's it for those. So, anything else to say anime related?
Nope, not really.
All right, and with that, we will now end the anime portion of our podcast and move on to the part where we talk about Star Trek, specifically The Next Generation.
Yeah.
And we're up to episode 15, which is I want to make sure I say this right. 11001001.
Okay, so basically they dock the Enterprise at this base thing. I don't know what to call it. And these binars come on to the ship, and they kind of work on things on the ship. And then in his spare time, Riker decides that for the second episode in a row, he's going to get seduced by a beautiful woman. And so Riker gets seduced, and then Picard decides to join him for some reason. And Picard is getting seduced by her too. So they're off doing that, and meanwhile, the ship is in complete disarray. It's about to blow up, and Data puts a self-destruct thing and says, okay, everyone, abandon ship, we're going to blow it up. And no one bothered to ask where Picard and Riker were. And then the ship gets brought out, like takes off into space, and Picard and Riker finally realize what's going on. They get out of there, and then they discover that the Binars created this holodeck woman, this fantasy woman, to distract them while they did this so they could bring the ship to their planet. And basically, Picard and Riker are able to overwrite it by putting in a certain password, which is the title of the episode. And then they asked the Binars, like, hey, why didn't you just tell us you needed help? We would have helped you. You didn't have to try to steal the ship from us. And they're like, we thought that you might say no. And that's pretty much it. And it's like, okay. And everything's back to normal. So there you have it. An interesting episode, though probably not a good one.
So, well, quick one correction to making that. You said that Data set it to self-destruct. He didn't do that. They thought the ship was going to blow up, so that's why they evacuated.
You're right.
The self-destruct was later when Picard and Riker come out of the holodeck and realize no one is there. They decide they're worried that it might have gotten captured, so they decide to set up the self-destruct in case that's the case. And then when they find out it's okay, they turn it off.
Yeah, you got that right. Yeah.
Okay. Honestly, I thought this was the best episode so far. I mean, I'd say it would just be kind of average by later season standards, but for season 1 so far, if I was grading on a curve, I'd give this a 10 out of 10 compared to everything else. There were like some parts that were kind of a little boring, some parts that were a little slow paced, but we at least got a kind of interesting alien race. There wasn't anything too aggressively stupid that I remember. So outside of some questions about like the self-destruct, like it mentions that you can only set it for 5 minutes. Why can't you like set it for more, just in case there's something relevant? But apparently that's how it goes. By the way, I want to give credit to the episode. When it starts counting down, and when we see it again, I checked like how far it was. Like, oh yeah, that's actually keeping pretty decent pace with the episode. It wasn't one of those things where like they set it for 5 minutes and then 10 minutes later they see there's like 2 minutes left.
Yeah, they did a good job with that.
So yeah, that's what I thought it was actually pretty decent. I feel like I have less to say about it than previous episodes because it's not just me complaining a bunch about it.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Okay, so what are we gonna rate it out of 10?
I think I'd give it a 7.5.
I'm gonna give it a 5. I think it was good in some ways, but a little unrealistic with how this woman was able to seduce Riker and Picard at the same time. I felt like there was a little bit too much of that going on. And it's funny because Riker will in a couple of seasons, he's going to say, I don't need your fantasy women to Q So clearly he's hearkening back to season 1 where he gets seduced by a fantasy woman. So yeah, I give it a 5. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It's not one I'm going to really remember. But so I just think 5's a good number.
Okay. Yeah. I was kind of trying to decide because I actually was thinking, oh, wow, is this an 8? And I thought, I think I'm just giving it a higher thing because because I think it's just better than the rest of this season. So I decided that I should, that maybe it would be more deserving of a 7 if not for that. So I just kind of went between them and went with a 7.5. All right. Let's see. So hopefully this is, hopefully we'll be getting more episodes like this and less like Angel 1.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know how much like the next sequence of episodes are. I at least I don't think they're considered particularly good, but I don't think they're considered particularly bad for a while. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I had anything else to say. But yeah, I thought it was a little slower at first, but once like the evacuation stuff starts, I thought it got more interesting. So yeah, let's see. No, I guess that's it. So without further ado, that'll be it for this week, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
We won't be intimidated by criminal threats.
Every Saturday night at midnight.
What do you say we go have some fun?
Adult Swim is building you a better cartoon show.
I'm trembling with excitement.
We call it Toonami.
You ever threaten my family again, you're dead.
How dare you, human!
Stop right there! Shadow Clone Jutsu! Now, in the name of the moon, I'll punish you!
You'll pay! And how do you plan to make me? Oh, this is impossible!
Reverse it!
Toonami. Every Saturday starting at midnight.
Make sure the plan proceeds as scheduled.
On Adult Swim.